So I've been asked, why would I keep the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order, even with all these negative rumors that are happening for the Nintendo Switch 2? Well, because I paid for it. End of story. Okay, I'm kidding. There's always more to it than just that. For the pre-order, I did try pretty hard for it. I missed the first day trying to place that pre-order for the Nintendo Switch 2. It even led to the second day where I had to take Kiwi to the vet, and I was still trying to do it on my phone. There she goes. So after missing the first round of the pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2, I went through Target, went through Best Buy. I even added myself to the Nintendo website waiting list. Till this day, a week out, I still haven't gotten an email for the Nintendo Switch 2. So good thing I was able to place an order on the following day with GameStop. I was refreshing my phone literally every 3 seconds just to try to place that order while waiting in line for Kiwi. Now here's some other reasons why I kept that Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order, even though I have the Nintendo Switch OLED, 2 of them, and the Nintendo Switch Lite. It's because of the first-party gaming experience. That first-party gaming experience with that native software just makes everything a lot easier for me to use, and it fits around my lifestyle. Let's say I take out a handheld with me as I'm commuting to work. I would want to play the games that I emulate to work without any problems, any hassles, or else I would just end up taking my whole commute tinkering with it just to get it to work, or getting it to work the night before. It just becomes a little bit more time consuming, and then it doesn't really make me want to finish my backlog. So the Nintendo Switch 2, even with all those rumored negatives, I think it would still fit around my lifestyle. Every console I have as of right now makes me kind of a small collector, or each handheld comes with its own perks. So I use certain ones for certain things. Yeah, I'm a little bit hungry. So I have the Steam Deck OLED for those indies and less graphic intensive games. PC for any of those AAA games with very high fidelity graphics like Expedition 33. I can play it on the ROG Ally X or even the Steam Deck, but I do want to see all those intensive effects and high grade graphics. So I would use my PC for that game. I have the PS5 for those exclusive games, Sony exclusives like Astrobot, or what's another Sony exclusive game? As of right now, just Astrobot is on my list to play. Of course, my go-to AAA sidearms, the ROG Ally X. It's great to play those PC games like Wuthering Waves, but also I can play Expedition 33, the Yakuza series, or even like Forspoken or Nier. Those games I just want to play on the higher end in terms of graphics, and while I'm on my commute, the ROG Ally X would be my go-to. And even when I do get the Nintendo Switch 2, I'm still going to use the Nintendo Switch Lite pretty frequently, especially when I'm commuting to work, just because it is that lighter form factor. I do have that OLED modification to it, and I still have a long backlog of Nintendo Switch games that I need to catch up on. Like for the Pokemon series, I only played all the way up to Scarlet and Violet, and I did skip Arceus and Let's Go, so I didn't get to play those, so catching up on those. Astro Chain, I'm really close to finishing. And then some other games I want to try out is like Unicorn Overlord. When it comes to handhelds, it's only on the Nintendo Switch, not on Steam Library. It is on the PS5, but I'm not gonna take that anywhere I go. When it comes to a backlog of games, my Steam library is massive. We're talking about around 500 games, and I've only finished like 12 games. You know, as you get older, you have less time to play, so there's that. But when it comes to my Nintendo Switch backlog, I finished a lot of games on there, like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, most of the Pokemon series like Pokemon Sword and Shield and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I also finished The World Ends With You. Even when it comes to like older games on PlayStation, the only games I really finished that I remembered was like Orphan, Scion of Sorcery, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 1. But when it comes to like those Nintendo handhelds like the 3DS, Game Boy Advance, and also the Switch, we have like some of the Fire Emblem games, We have Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 358/2 Days, Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Yeah, I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, but Kingdom Hearts 3 came and I got pretty disappointed about that. But yeah, that just leads to my Nintendo backlog being much smaller than my Steam library. I did hear there was a couple of negatives when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and that could entice a lot of people to avoid pre-ordering the Nintendo Switch 2 or even canceling their pre-orders. Like some examples are not owning anything on the Nintendo Switch library or even the Nintendo Switch itself. There were rumors where the Nintendo Switch 2 will brick if it comes to any modifications within the system. I believe it's more software related modifications, so if you were to jailbreak your Nintendo Switch 2, it would brick, so you wouldn't be able to use it anymore. There's one thing that irks me a lot is the C button on the Nintendo Switch. There's already the screenshot button that I don't use that often, so it's pretty useless to me. But even now, there's the C button, the community button. It does become more useless after the free trial. You do need a Nintendo Switch Online subscription to be able to use it. But if you're that solo player that plays a lot of one-player games and you're playing games by yourself, everyone's an adult now, no one really has the time to play with each other anymore, that button really becomes even more worthless. And that kind of irks me, but it's not a big deal breaker to be canceling my pre-order for. With these new prices for games such as Mario Kart World being around $80 and Donkey Kong Bonanza being around $70, a lot of large-scale gaming companies are kind of following that route too. So it just leads to, it is what it is. There's not much we can do if that is kind of like the new prices for the new generation of gaming. Price to performance kind of kicks in though, because there are some AAA games out there that aren't really AAA games, but they play like AAA games and they're a lot better. Like, for example, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. When I'm playing that, it just feels so much more of a AAA game than other, like Final Fantasy 16. I still need to finish that, by the way. So yeah, it's not really a workaround, but as time is going on, games are just gonna get more expensive. Another negative that I heard, you don't really own anything. Same kind of applies to digital libraries like the Steam library. You don't really own those games either. So that negative kind of puts me in a spot where kind of irritates me just because I don't get to preserve any of the games that I buy in the past too. So worst comes to worst, just download all those games that you own onto a hard drive or some sort of memory card and then just seal it off for game preservations. I do see how it kind of hurts a lot of physical collectors where they're trying to collect these hard copies or physical copies of the games. But with the Nintendo Switch 2, most of these cartridges only come with the game key card, so you don't really have the game on there. The game will be downloaded onto the Nintendo Switch 2, and then that physical copy just acts as a key for you to play those games. So that kind of ruins game preservation a lot, especially for those physical collectors. In my case though, I do collect all of the games digitally. So my way of kind of like trying to save that game preservation is just downloading the games and then keeping it there. But it does end up in a weird spot where if Nintendo does, knock on wood, turn off all their servers like they did with the 3DS, then I do lose all those games. But there's not much I can do with that right now. But the positives to having that Nintendo Switch 2 just kind of gave me the feeling that I should get it compared to like other handhelds that are coming out this year. So it's the shiny new thing. The Nintendo Switch 2 is a huge major upgrade compared to the Nintendo Switch 1. They're already sold out of those pre-orders, so you can imagine how many more people are still waiting to get their own pre-orders. One of the other reasons why I decided in the end not to cancel my Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order were the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 titles like Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart Worlds. I've never owned a Mario Kart game. I played it at my friend's place and I've always considered getting the game, and you know, it just never occurred to me. So I did want to give Mario Kart Worlds a try. It does look pretty good. There's some open world features in the game that kind of got me hyped for. And Donkey Kong Bonanza, believe it or not, Mario Odyssey on the Nintendo Switch 1 was the first game that I actually finished on the Nintendo Switch. And seeing Donkey Kong Bonanza and how close it is in terms of gameplay experience with Mario Odyssey. I really do want to give it a try, and I'm super excited for that game. It's kind of like a big reason as to why I decided to keep the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order. With other exclusive titles coming out, like the new Souls game only for Nintendo Switch, I gotta give those games a try. Titles that you can't really experience anywhere else unless you emulate them, but that's probably going to be years later because we don't know what Nintendo is going to be implementing in their new game cartridges or even in the software itself. The Nintendo Switch 2, in the marketing video, they did also show how it's the same thinness as the Nintendo Switch OLED or Nintendo Switch. And I love the way the Nintendo Switch is thin in my hands. That original hardware is kind of what got me to keep most of my older Nintendo handhelds, like the 3DS. That same thinness and that same lightness just made me pick up the Nintendo Switch more over my other handhelds, especially when it comes to the Nintendo library. Those positives being the new shiny thing, some major upgrades from the Nintendo Switch, a Switch 2 exclusive titles, original hardware, and also form factor. So with all these handhelds, it makes me feel like I'm sort of like a handheld collector, and I do like collecting these handhelds. Only problem is pricing. In this year, there's so many handhelds that came out, including all those Android handhelds like with the Ein Odin, and also the Retro Pockets that came out. Other handhelds like the Ein Neo handhelds that I never got because those are really expensive. And there are other handhelds that I really did consider, like the Lenovo Legion Go. I never had the first one, and I thought it would be cool if I did a comparison between that and the ROG Ally X. And there's also newer Steam official collaborations with Lenovo, like the Lenovo Legion Go S that comes with SteamOS on it. Those can get really pricey too, and essentially I'm playing the same games on them like on the ROG Ally X, and I can play Steam games on there. It really made me change up my priorities, putting the Nintendo Switch 2 over all those other devices. Price point wise, it's still a lot cheaper compared to the Lenovo Legion Go S and the Lenovo Legion Go 2. I heard those can range up from like $700 for the Lenovo Legion Go and $900 to $1,000 for the Lenovo Legion Go 2. And with those pricings, I feel like I'm just essentially tinkering with them and getting my dopamine hit from the tinkering process rather than playing the games. And also the games that I play, I can play them on the PC or even the ROG Ally X. So that really does bring the Nintendo Switch 2 higher on my priority list because of the price and the performance and the pros to it. Like the console bundled with Mario Kart Worlds for $500 compared to another PC handheld which costs probably $700 to $1,000, and then I would have to tinker with it to make sure everything is running fine. And don't get me wrong, that process is super fun, especially when you start getting things to work. But again, the pricing is pretty high, and I really don't have the budget to be getting every single handheld that comes out, even though I want to. And also, like I mentioned before, I can emulate a lot of the Nintendo Switch games, especially the older titles, onto all these other handhelds. But it's just a lot better to play it on original hardware. So those are the reasons that kept me from canceling my Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order. But I feel like when it comes to being kind of like a first-time user, where you're kind of introduced to the handheld gaming world, and the only handhelds that you actually have are more of like the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, 3DS, or even like the Switch, and your other gaming experiences comes from consoles like the PS5 or the Xbox. I think for you, keeping that Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order would be more well worth it. But if you're more into like PC gaming, where you have your own computer or the ROG Ally X, then maybe you can go that route. So those are pretty much all the reasons why I would just keep my Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order and why I didn't skip out on it. So, yeah. Also, I just want to say a couple more things. I've been pretty late on creating content, not because I don't like creating content, and as a matter of fact, I really do like creating content. But as time kind of went on, I got really busy, and for the past 2 months, I've been working more rather than creating content more. I'm gonna try to fix my time a little bit more and try to start creating content at least once a week and uploading at least once a week. So hopefully you guys stay for the journey. All right, and as always, a great way for you guys to help support this channel is to give this video a like, share it to a friend that is considering on either canceling his Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order or keeping it. Maybe we can share the same thoughts, and subscribe. Thanks guys, peace.